Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back with another video from Mother's Basement, and today we're checking out the hottest trash anime of winter 2021. I guarantee he'll be talking about X-Arm because it is hilarious to talk about how bad X-Arm is. Everyone talk about how bad X-Arm is. But in all seriousness, it is absolutely awful. And I'm hoping he's going to mention that dungeon that only I can enter or see or whatever, because I tried getting into that and it is just god awful. I need to nibble on my female friend's ear until she nearly orgasms to get a power up. That is literally how one episode goes. It's so annoying. So anyway, and it's not even hot. So let's get into this. The hottest trash anime of winter 2021. Not that I find anime girls attractive,
there are so many great new and returning anime out right now that it's hard
is
to know
to be
where
protected,
to even
not to
start.
be
But today,
injected.
We're not starting with any of them. Because in addition to instant classics like Wonder Egg Priority and Horimiya,
we need to watch more Wonder Egg.
An abundance of slapped-together,
But Horimiya,
unintentionally
second
and
episode put me off.
intentionally hilarious garbage. And I'm a man with a passion for trash. Some of the shows I'm about to show you are straight up awful. Others are just plain weird.
Yeah.
All of them, on some level
X-Arm!
distinct from
It's so
actually
bad.
good anime, are entertaining in ways best enjoyed alongside a crowd of
Apparently the manga's really good.
possibly intoxicated friends. Of course, getting friends together is a big ask
It is
nowadays
quite
on
difficult. Bring on June 21st.
So I'm here in my stead
My
to highlight
birthday.
the hilarity hidden in these hopeless excuses for anime.
That's when
as
we're
well as
apparently being let out in
rate
England.
on a proprietary scale of garbage quantity
Apparently.
and hotness, so you know how to prioritize your future shit watching.
Okay.
Starting with the one that should be at the very top of
There we
the list.
go.
You don't see anime
X-Arm.
of X-Arm's caliber every season or even every year.
It's so bad.
This
Look at
isn't
it.
just
The character
any
composition.
trash. It's rarefied, finely aged
Beast Wars
garbage
looked
of
better than this.
exquisitely
But that was in the
pleasing texture
90s.
with a distinct, piquant
And
aftermath.
Reboot.
This
Reboot
is
looked
the
better
kind
than
of
this.
violent mess that you just can't look away from. Angles so tangled they verge on
They even
non-utility.
merged the
It
different, like,
lingers in your
dimensions.
mind's
You got
eye
3D
even after
characters
you
and, like,
pull your
drawn
feet once away,
characters.
taunting you to imagine how any human being could fuck anything up
Whoa,
in this
whoa.
many ways, this badly at the same time. Chibi-8 was clearly a product of poor planning and screenwriting, compounded by severely mismanaged resources. Handshaker's nauseating visuals resulted
Apparently
from an
that's
ambitious
bad.
team of veteran animators using technology they hadn't totally figured out yet in service of a vision that they also seemed to be figuring out as they went along. Look at Weed or Scarred and yeah, they're still not good, but they don't physically hurt your brain anymore.
Yeah.
You can see what they're going for, stylistically speaking. X-Arm's issues start with the fact that it's not really going for anything.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like
if
it
it
is.
is, nobody working on it has
How weird's
even
that?
1% of
She's
the talent
animated,
required
like,
to realize
2D
it.
and she's
It bears
3G.
all the hallmarks of both of these problems, only replace that team of ambitious veteran artists with Visual Flight, a CG studio whose previous commercial works include some environments from Sekiro,
What?
some unspecified game design work on other FromSoft titles,
Oh, that's
and
embarrassing.
four of their employees
Sekiro
did
looks
something
beautiful,
or
doesn't it?
other
Yeah.
unfair.
That's what your thing
You may
is.
have noticed
They
that
worked on
none
this
of that
bit.
has
No.
anything to do with making anime. And as you'll see,
I didn't know
that's
that.
something of a running theme with this show's production team.
God.
They were led by a film director who's never
Never worked
in
on anime
animation
before, yeah.
a screenwriter who's never worked in animation before, a stunt coordinator who's never worked in animation
Oh
before.
god.
You get
You
the
can
idea.
tell.
Basically, this is what happens when a bunch of film and game guys walk into the anime industry and say, "Psh, we can do better." That sounds like an unfair characterization. Bear in mind that it's how this anime characterized itself, with the tagline in its first trailer declaring war against all of the sci-fi series around the world! Exclamation mark!
Yeah.
Exclamation mark! That is already a ridiculously bold statement to
Yeah,
be making
man.
while adapting a
We're
low-rent
declaring
Ghost in
war.
the Shell knockoff whose chief selling point
With
is
an
a manga,
awful
judging from
animation.
its covers, is
Look at it, that
how
looks
naked
boss.
this one android gets. But when your entire team has basically never done this before, I don't know, maybe aim a little lower. Declare war on Mars of Destruction or Battlefield Earth first, and work your way up from there. X-Arm would still be fighting an uphill battle then, but not
Battlefield
all
Earth
the way
is
up the
awful.
entire Himalayas in one go. Honestly, I don't know if it actually deserves
How has it got a
to be
2?
rated under the likes of Mars of Destruction or Abunai Sisters on MAL, even if its attitude does make it very hard to defend. The story it's based on, about a teen boy from the 2010s who gets in a car accident and wakes up in 2030 as a brain in the box with the power to hack any computer that the cops then use to solve crimes, is built on some interesting ideas and
It's an interesting
has a
concept, I
decent
liked
cast
it.
of characters that aren't completely butchered all the time.
Yeah.
There are parts of this show that are unironically enjoyable if you can ignore the rest of it,
Which is very
I just
hard.
can't say for something like, say, Gibiate. That said, the ironic
Look at the animation, it's so
enjoyability of the parts
weird.
that aren't good, which is most of them, is exponentially higher than most other trash anime. You've seen 7 out of 10 stories with 1 out of 10 presentation before, but you've never seen anything like this.
Shaking of it is
1 out of 10.
free
You
in
know
Sony
an
Vegas.
anime is special when the frame rate stutters. Making CGI anime look good is complicated and challenging. It's taken decades of
Beastars
trial and
looks so
error,
good,
refinement
doesn't it?
of process,
yeah.
lessons learned compounded upon lessons learned for the industry to reach the level of Beastars.
Can't wait for season 2 to get added onto Netflix.
Drifting Dragons, shit, even Berserk 2016. To watch X-Arm is to see all of that progress completely erased by a team starting from behind square zero that doesn't even know how to make regular anime. This show makes mistakes that haven't been made in commercial animation since Initial D Season 1. Its cars actually look worse somehow. Almost nothing about how these characters...
Why is he animated that way?
Posited into scenes
What's going on?
the demands of TV animation or even correct on a basic technical level. It's kind of impressive, honestly. Visual Flight does have a talented team of 3D modelers.
Yeah, like, how-
Sekiro proves that, but this show's about as
How does it go from that to this?
Sekiro as you can get, stylistically speaking. And what it's going for is clearly not most of this team's forte.
No.
Also, it's worth noting that modeling, rigging, and animation are all very different disciplines with very little overlap in required skills, all of which you need to make an anime. It sure does seem like whoever put the bones in these 3D models just used a basic quick rig tool on default
It
settings.
does
and
seem
left
like
at
it.
That. Their jaws move up and down along a single axis. That's it. Their lips have no controls and are stuck in a permanent
So wait, so if you could do an abridgment of this, it would actually go quite difficult. Because you've literally just got the one mouth movement.
Huh. So if you were hoping to see any emotions,
Although,
attached
actually,
to
no,
the
would it
show's
make it
dialogue
easier then?
or drama, you're shit out of luck. The star-studded cast of voice actors does what it can to make up for that.
It would
but
just come
there's
across as lazy,
only so
wouldn't it?
much that can be done. Conveying pretty much anything besides walking, T-pose breathing, and basic hand gestures seems to be out of scope in almost all of X-Arm's scenes. The one exception is its action, which employs full motion capture. In theory, these scenes should be fairly impressive as they play to Yoshikatsu
Should
Miura
be.
and Takahiro Ochi's strengths in live-action stunt work, and indeed the raw choreography of the show's fights isn't bad. The camera work also presents it coherently, even if it is a little basic. Unfortunately, it appears that nobody informed them raw motion capture data still needs to be tweaked and refined by professional animators to iron out any errors in the capture, fine-tune facial movements, and ensure hair and clothes react with believable weight to the captured motion if you don't want the whole end product to
You see, some of the stuff they're trying to do would look boss if it was animated well. It would look awesome.
Doesn't magically make them look cooler or make up for the lack of this process. Unless you've got a thing for poorly built puppets, the ecchi elements of this series aren't about to offset any of this. This is the sort of story where the trigger that allows the
I don't see how
protagonist to enter
anyone could
battle
enjoy
mode
any
is two
kind of
chicks making out
ecchi
with each
content
other,
in something
because
animated this
ass-kicking
way.
android Alma needs DNA from her human cop partner Minami to authorize Akira overriding her controls, you see. But, animating kisses is pretty hard, actually, so the animators just clip their mouths
Blur it.
into each other and hid it behind a big glowing particle.
That's amazing.
Attempts to be sexy do represent a not insubstantial portion of this series' narrative, and none of them work, but at least most of them are that awkwardly executed and end up being hilarious instead of creepy. When they're not, they just serve to highlight how much fan service writing like this tends to bog down stories, and how little it really adds without competently horny artwork to back it up. The
I want
shoddy
my
production
horny artwork,
values
damn
end
it.
up providing the same kind of
I don't.
litmus
I
test
don't.
for every
No.
aspect of the manga's writing, and most of them don't fare well under it. None of the world building really holds up to scrutiny. X-Arms are supposed to be these out-of-place pieces of hyper-advanced
Yeah, they're
technology
actually, like,
that
completely
humans
out
can't
there, aren't
replicate, but the setting includes sentient AI supercomputers and autonomous, lifelike androids, so the line between them and
Very
regular
blurred, yeah.
science stuff is almost non-existent.
Yeah.
The series also tries to present a messy, Gitz-esque political landscape, but the power dynamics don't really make sense if you think about them too long.
So it's trying to
And
be
it
Ghost in the
throws around
Shell,
big
alright.
ideas like the military-industrial complex is little more than cheap buzzwords. All of this is easy enough to ignore when you're looking at cool sci-fi illustrations full of tiny, meticulous technical details.
You know what? People
but
were
with
giving the
moving
Ghost in the Shell
images like
series that came out
this
last
to
year on
distract you,
Netflix
the
crap because of the animation, but
inconsistencies and lazy
this
writing
is bad.
shortcuts scream in your brain. As I said, a few of the questions X-Arm raises and conflicts it
Ooh, that
puts
should be
its
carrying on
characters
this year,
through
actually.
are genuinely compelling enough to provoke some interesting thoughts, even coded as they are in the raw sewage of the rest of it. Akira's whole brain-in-a-box situation raises some interesting points about personhood, for instance, and while it is very funny to see Minami react with the exact same expression she uses for bad ecchi gags to almost shooting her long-lost brother turned cyborg terrorist in the face, the way their differing viewpoints are rooted in their very
That's amazing.
proximity to their parents' deaths is still inherently fascinating.
Oh my
The
God.
dumb stuff does tend to distract one from these notions pretty fast, though. Like, in that same scene, Alma has been reprogrammed to help with Little Bro's revenge thing and severed her quantum neural link with Akira to stop him from interfering.
Ah.
The show isn't subtle about that link being a metaphor for hanky-panky, so did Akira just get cyber NTR'd? If only he'd known about today's sponsor, ExpressVPN, he could have... Actually, their tech's not super applicable to
That
the
was
specific
a nice
sci-fi
one.
hacking
That was
scenario. I just
very,
needed a
yeah.
segue into this ad spot. Luckily, I have so much left to say about X-Arm. Its
Yeah.
every frame is a fractal collage of how not to make anime bullet points that only gets funnier the more technical knowledge you possess about how 3D animation is supposed to work and look. Though many of the mistakes will still be obvious to even the untrainedest of eyes.
people are gonna be
like how
talking about
putting
this, like-
PS2 grade CGI
Aren't they,
people in
though?
the same
Let's be
shot
honest.
as talking head
How
visual
not
novel
to do
portraits
Yeah,
of
like,
characters
I reckon end of the
and
year,
model
people are still
only
going to be talking
highlights
about this.
poorly
How bad's that?
emulate hand-drawn
How bad is
animation
that?
Oh my God. He looks like a sticker.
Yeah, he looks like he's that thin.
It's a show where a villain hangs his own
Going on?
mugshot up as a 20-foot tall portrait in the foyer of his mansion, simply because that's how few unique drawings per episode there were to go around. That's not even getting into how the 2D characters stick out like those rocks in a Dragon Ball background.
Yeah,
Exactly
you know it's about to
who's
fall
going
off
be
'cause it's
around
different
for more
colour.
than a couple episodes and/or get involved in fight scenes. This alone spoils
What the
a ton
hell?
of the story. I feel like I haven't even covered the basics of all this badness, but there's more trash left to get to. And
Yeah, let's talk about more
I guess
bad
I've gotta
anime.
save something for the end of year roast. For now, I'm content to declare that X-Arm is a full-on 5-alarm dumpster
Oh,
fire.
no.
The highest honor available in a rating system that I definitely thought about before writing this sentence. Launching this system with a perfect score is kind of bad form.
What
though.
is
It
this?
doesn't mean much without a range of lower scores with which to compare it. So before I get into more of winter's hottest garbage, let me briefly touch on some trashy shows that ultimately left me cold. Early on in the season, I thought that Hortensia Saga would make for excellent roasting fodder.
Why have I
After
not
a
watched
chaotic
this?
first episode featuring a goofily grimdark
My
werewolf
God.
encounter, it settles into the same boring old routine as almost every other generic fantasy anime based on a moderately successful mobile
Oh.
game. So I rated one kitchen trash can full of stale bread and hair.
Tends to be
I
the
had
way.
even lower expectations for Project Scarred, the latest potential disaster piece from Handshakers Studio, Go Hands. As I alluded to in the X-Arm section, though, they've mostly figured out how to make their weird art style work at this point, as well as it can work. And the story they're telling is just a generic dystopian action deal where some of the characters have superpowers with martial arts gunplay that's competent but unremarkable. 2 trash cans full of stale bread and hair. Skate Leading Stars is a bad Yuri on Ice clone that invents a new form of AI.
Why have I not seen this either? I thought I was all over this season.
In order to differentiate itself from its inspiration and also avoid having to do any research into how the real sport works or is scored. All told, it's a pretty bog standard team sports drama thing, save for the fact that all of its
sexy
characters
boys.
are weirdly mean and irritable, which is sort of funny sometimes.
I seen your head pop over then as soon as I said sexy boys.
Also, the show's groan-inducing attempts at humor often put a damper on its ability to get ironic laughs. I give it one sizable waste paper bin near a poorly wired light fixture, but with a sprinkler nearby that stops it from getting too interesting. We Cross, Diva Alive, is a convoluted trading card game anime spun off from the equally convoluted but much better Madoka Magica meets Yu-Gi-Oh setting of Selector Infected We Cross, in which
You said a lot of things that just blew my brain. What is this?
Both audience approval and more conventional card game points, both of which count toward a greater ranking system. It's not very well explained. There's a lot of comic potential in that.
That looked cool.
The character design
See the guitar axe thing.
absurdly horny to hornily absurd,
Look
but
back.
the story so far is just predictably dull friendship and optimism-driven idle stuff. From what I've seen, I'm gonna give it 2 convention hall bins full of booster pack filler and discount idle dojins directly under an air conditioner. That's how not hot this trash is. But should the series pull some sort of on-brand dark twist, maybe we can flick a cigarette butt in there and see what happens. If you're looking to laugh at a mishandled Moe show, LBX Girls will give you way better bang for your buck. It also starts off in a Yu-Gi-Oh-esque world where everyone is obsessed with the same toy. In this case, pocket-sized, battle-capable
They look
robots
cool.
called
I want one.
LBX, short for
Babe,
Little
get me
Battle
one of
Wars
them.
Experience.
Hell no.
Our protagonist, Yui, is the only person on the entire planet who has not yet caught the highly merchandisable fever. As the series begins, though, she finally cracks under the peer pressure, buys a toy robot, and gets instantly isekai'd into a parallel post-apocalyptic Tokyo besieged by giant robot spiders. Therein, she discovers that she's become an armor girl, able to wield giant versions of the tiny LBX weaponry against the mimesis threat, and joins a squad of other armor girls as she searches.
Okay, I don't want one now.
Setup for what amounts to a basic battle road trip series with a cast of generic waifus. For the most part,
This looked just as bad as Azure Lane. I watched the first episode of Azure Lane and I stopped. I didn't get into them being boats.
Mundane scenes and
It makes sense to
conversations
people that know
often
Azure Lane.
swerve into amusingly surreal
Little girls that are
territory.
like boats.
Like when a guy who's yelling at his dad for getting his girlfriend killed can't decide if he wants to take a cupcake with him when he storms out of the room. Also, the later flashback to said girlfriend's dramatic, tragic death is a laugh riot. And even when the show drags its feet through exposition and dialogue, which is most of the time, the fact that none of its characters really think or act like rational human beings infuses its slow moments with gently ironic humor.
Wait,
I give
they're in a
LBX Girls
dystopian world fighting giant spiders, and then they're like, hey, let's go get cakes,
I haven't seen it go up yet, but if it does, it could be spectacular. By now, you should have a firm grasp on how this rating system works, so I will never attempt to explain it again. And if you ask me, I will yell at you. On that note, in discussing
I
the
won't
precious
ask them.
trash of winter 2021, one series is unavoidable. Not because it's particularly remarkable, but because if I don't say anything about it, a few very loud and insistent commenters will. A lot. So, big fat content warning if sexual assault is a thing you don't want to hear about today. I won't get advertiser unfriendly or dwell on this for too long, but use the chapters if you want to skip over it. Redo of a Hero follows Kiaru, the
There's so
healing mage
many
in a
complaints
generic
about this
Demon King
anime.
battling RPG party whose fellow big air quotes, heroes keep him hooked on drugs so they can use and abuse him,
Oh.
both for his incredible but traumatic to use recovery powers, and, I mean,
Did you just spit
heard
on
the
him?
content warning. Kiaru discovers that his powers can be used to heal the world, granting him a temporal do-over at the moment of the Demon King's defeat, with which he plans to take meticulous Machiavellian time revenge on his abusers by letting them do it all to him again for 6 straight months. But after that, he pulls the reverse Uno card on the evil princess, erases her memory, and changes both of their faces so they can go defeat the Demon King on their own in secret and run through the rest of his revenge list while they're at it. It takes the kingdom like a week to track him down. Like Yagami,
What?
this anti-hero is not. It's a plot full of excuses, cliches, and holes you could drive Truck-kun through, centered on comically vile, paper-thin personalities, and built atop a laughably contrived fantasy world foundation. Like, this healing magic can regrow limbs, transform people's faces, steal their memories and EXP, and reverse time, but actually healing someone who passed out 2 seconds ago? That's impossible, guy.
Oh, okay.
That one scene makes the near-missing tiny web fingers of
Oh, no,
Amazing
don't show me this
Spider-Man 2
scene. I
feel
may- it
dramatic
makes me
and
cry.
weighty by comparison, but
Okay,
I
you
don't know
didn't
if
show the
it's
whole
all
thing.
that
That was from The
meaningful
Amazing
of a
Spider-Man 2.
comparison. Sure,
Oh,
redo
oh,
of
no.
Healer fails
No,
so
I know the scene.
Yeah.
compelling, even sensical story, but it's not really trying to do that so much as it is constructing a series of quick, vaguely
Yeah, I've heard
plausible
that this is
causal
very
links
much a
between set,
hentai.
staring at a wall and listening to music scenes. This isn't anime. It's hentai.
There we
Just
go. There we go.
hentai with TV-level production values that happens to be using a
So how is this still
late-night
airing, but
broadcast slot to
Interspecies Reviewers got
advertise its
removed?
Blu-rays? I don't think there's much point in seriously criticizing a series like this for storytelling or subject matter. I doubt most people watching it are taking it very seriously. Anyone who is likely won't be receptive to criticism, and it's not like it's trying to make a serious statement with or about its questionable content. It's just there for people who are into that sort of thing. And off television,
I'm
there is
not.
way more shocking
I'm
stuff
not.
catering to those same tastes. If they're your tastes, that's between you and Haruhi. But if you're looking for a good shit watch or endurance anime, you can do a lot better. Or worse, I guess. To be fair, though, it
Where
is
does
a
one
topic
watch
of
this
the
anime,
now, and
though?
you can also do worse.
Not that I want to.
Better.
Just,
There's
I'm pretty
definitely
sure it's not on
some
Funimation and
solid
it's not on
unintentional
Crunchyroll.
comedy to
Who's
be
showing
found here,
this?
Like when Kiaru takes Flare into hiding and changes their names to Kiaruga and Freya. And over here is Mr. Hilta. Good afternoon. Also, one of his healer powers, what's a YouTube safe way of putting this? It, turns his icing sugar into rare candy. The jokes practically write themselves there. I've heard of grinding before, but this is ridiculous. Fill in the blank like it's worth the XP. Hey baby, I've got your rest bonus right here. Depending on your outlook, the way the story bends over backwards, phrasing, in order to morally justify its protagonist is pretty funny too. Like, every villain needs to be even more cartoonishly evil than a slave-owning serial predator. So if Sugo from SAO is a 9, they all start at 11 and just keep getting louder from there. That said, all the bad guys are bad in pretty much the same way, just more.
Jugo
They don't
is,
get much
like,
screen
proper
time either,
pervy,
and the
nasty,
remaining plot
ugh.
that isn't, plot is padded out with a lot of slow, basic fantasy questing stuff you've seen 1,000 times before.
I'm so glad
For a show that
he's
tries
explaining this.
so damn
I've been so
hard to be
confused as to why
spicy,
people
it
have been
ends up
complaining
being
about this anime.
pretty bland most of the time. Considering all that, I'm giving Redo of a Healer a rating of 2 soggy, smoldering trash cans and 1 wastebasket full of moldy tissues.
Wow,
There's
sounds right,
definitely
sounds
some
right.
dumb fun to be had here for those who can stomach the subject matter, but that's about it. Perhaps it would have fared better, in my estimation, had this winter not blessed us with an infinitely more ridiculous and creative.
This anime sucks so bad.
The Hidden Dungeon.
Ah,
I can
here we
enter as an
go.
adventure story
Here we
set in a
go.
Dragon Quest-esque world where everyone is born with innate skills. Noir Stardia's skill, Great Sage, allows him to instantly know literally
anything.
by asking questions
But
of
it
an
hurts him.
omniscient
It gives
wizard
him a
who lives in his head.
headache.
Sadly, he's never been able to take full advantage of this because that knowledge comes at a
Here we go.
terrible
Oh my god,
cost.
this is ridiculous. Can't believe he's
Agonizing,
explained this story.
brutal headaches that can only be cured by making out with a hot girl, like his childhood friend Emma, who is constantly
Constantly up for it.
but not his sister Alice, who is constantly vocally aching for it. Smart man follows the rules.
Yes, well
After
done.
a rich
Give him
bully
points for
steals
that.
his dream of being a librarian,
doesn't make out with his
Noir's
sister.
only fallback is to become an adventurer. So he uses Great Sage to uncover a hidden dungeon in which he can grind for loot and train against rare monsters, and once he gets there, is led by psychic whispers to a beautiful, buxom, blue-haired woman chained asleep to
up.
the walls. Via telepathy, she introduces herself as Olivia.
She's actually quite funny,
a
actually. I
famous
give it.
world-class
She's funny.
adventurer who was sealed by the chains of death after defeating a demon here 200 years ago. Those chains will kill her if removed, so she decides to make Noir her apprentice while he figures out how to get her out of there and pass her unique skills on to him. One of these skills, Bestow, allows its user to pass skills on to other people. Another, Editor, allows its user to edit the conditions of
Yeah, it's
any
so
other
weird.
skill.
It's like,
the
what?
last one, Get Creative, allows its user to create any skill they can imagine, instantly at the cost of their life force as measured in LP, which is a pretty hefty toll, but there are ways of recovering.
Yes, there are.
So Noir just has to do things that give him life, like eating a hearty meal, finding gold or treasure to satisfy his earthly desires, or touching some boobies.
Yes.
I don't have to tell you which of those comes up most often. So to recap,
stupid.
this protag
So
could has the
stupid.
power to know literally anything and do literally anything, with the drawback that these abilities will hurt or kill him if he's not constantly experiencing edgy scenes. You may not think that's a drawback, but just imagine asking your adventuring companion to suck on her ear while a monster is trying to eat both of you, and you'll begin to understand what
It's
a
ridiculous.
fearless
A couple
hero
of us watches like,
Stadia
what?
really is.
There's a
It
giant
doesn't
rabbit
take
thing
long
trying to
for
kill you, and he's like, oh,
fighting
do you know
over
what?
as
Let
soon
me
as
just
he
suck on
turns
your
his
ear for a
First
minute.
West
And
End
she's like,
proves his stuff.
oh.
Adventurer's Guild receptionist Lola decides she wants to have a very close working relationship with him, which bugs
Yeah,
Emma.
she's showing, it's like,
but not
hey,
that
check out my
much.
panties.
She's not
Whoa,
saying,
life
"Get
points."
your hands off my mans, just,
Ooh, I'm touching
hey,
a boob,
leave
life
some room
points.
for my hands. And that's a good attitude to have, because every other woman they meet also wants to jump Noir's bones,
And
which
give him some
totally
life
makes
points.
sense. Sure, he's so dense that he can make out with a girl every single morning before school and still be convinced she only thinks of him as a friend, but
That's ridiculous.
look, he's protag good. Don't question it.
Look at him,
That seems to
touching
be the
boobs and he's
driving
going
logic
past.
of this entire show, actually, and it tends to be pretty tongue-in-cheek about it. Noir's Emoto has magic ahoge that automatically detect when a new harem sloot has entered his orbit, for example. And
Who
at
haven't I
one
made out
point,
with
he
yet?
picks up a
Your
lucky
boobs have not been
accident
rubbed.
skill that dramatically raises his odds of fumbling his way face or hands first into more life points. Then, realizing its immense, terrifying power, he immediately edits it so it won't interrupt any important story scenes or, like, ruin a funeral or something. Spoofing harem tropes is nothing new in anime, of course, and none of these jokes are particularly clever. The real comic gold in this dungeon lies in its efforts to set up fan service moments, because despite having built-in excuses like that lucky accident skill and those magic headaches whose only cure is a heaping dose of tongue, the hidden dungeon only I can enter is never content to rest on its laurels or rely on cliches, and it gets real wacky with this stuff. In one scene, a combat instructor rewards Noir for his excellent dodging by sitting on his chest, and then punishes him for complaining about it by sitting on his face. Face sitting, by the way, is also a skill in this world. Lola's rival receptionist, Sarah, is an A-rank face sitter.
I'm so
Gotta
glad you've
watch out
turned
for
off
those min
this
maxes.
video.
In another scene, to earn the money and life points they need to cure a death curse that Noir just happened to notice that one of his classmates was under by randomly scanning her, he, Emma, Lola, and an elf priestess named Luna, who, I can't stress this enough, just met them like 2 days ago, take part in a harem dog show run by a very divorced nobleman and his cult of incel shy guys.
Wow,
with the
I'm
girls
so glad I
performing
dropped off
tricks
this
like
anime.
warming your master up when he's cold and planting 3 kisses on his lips simultaneously, which seems physically impossible.
Yeah, how do you do that?
It's like a D&D Mad Lib filled in by a 12-year-old boy who just found out what sex is last week from an anime and isn't entirely clear on the mechanics yet, but nonetheless thinks the whole thing is pretty nifty. And while this show is substantially hornier in its scripting than even high school DxD, its production values are, on average, so low that it's rarely genuinely sexy, and even when it is, it never aims above a PG rating. So, with a few exceptions, this is the sort of hilariously trashy ecchi that anyone can laugh at without feeling too uncomfortable. Fun for the whole family when they inevitably walk in on you watching it. The series has some fast and loose fun with its fantasy elements as well. Goofy, weird monster designs, silly skill and stat-related jokes abound. Its cast is also generally fun to be around, even if they are a little flat in their characterization. It's not as strong a fantasy comedy as
so good.
Konosuba or even Suppose a Kid from the Last Dungeon.
That's so good! Ooh, if you're not watching it, check it out.
It is funny on purpose, and the intentional comedy helps to smooth out the weight between the most outrageous moments of contrived fan service. By the way, don't miss the after-credits scenes in every episode from 3 onward. They're really something. I'm giving the hidden dungeon Only I Can Enter 4 steadily blazing oil drums for its uproarious unintentional comedy and surprisingly cozy overall atmosphere. For the greedy trash connoisseur not quite satisfied with X-Arm, it's definitely the season's next best worst thing. That's all I have time to cover for now, but wait, stop the presses. Future Jeff here. After I finished writing and recording this, I saw that Netflix had dropped an adaptation of the ultra-edgy survival game manga High Rise Invasion, and while I'm too busy with other projects at present to properly measure the temperature and quantity of garbage in it, the sloppy writing, sensationalized yet barely animated violence, awkward pacing, time to content warning of 10 minutes, and whiplashing characterization all reek of a hefty human heap of the stuff. I'll be talking about it at some point for sure, but if you want to watch it before then, bring some beers. Okay, now for real, that's all I have time to cover. But as they say, one man's treasure is another man's trash. So I'd love to hear what your favorite trash of winter 2021 is, and why in the comments down below. And if you'd like to hear about some good anime you could be watching, like a freak, there's a video on the end card that can help with that. Or you can just watch the worst anime of 2020 again. I'm Jeff Thu, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.
Damn. That's some trash anime. Oh, God. Not much to say on that one. But thank you guys very much for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what else you want to discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys. So, guys, Nick Dan.